The day Ethan Caldwell parked his car on Carver Street in Southside Chicago, he sat behind the wheel for 11 minutes before he could make himself get out. It was not the neighborhood. It was not the cracked sidewalks or the line of narrow apartments, with their front steps barely 2 feet above street level. He had been in harder places than this. He had sat in boardrooms where men tried to dismantle everything he had built, and he had not flinched. He had looked into cameras during press conferences where reporters tried to catch him in something, and he had held steady. But this was different. This was a person he had wronged. He had money. He had a company worth $4 billion. He had a penthouse in New York, a board that listened to him, an assistant who never let him miss a meeting, and a name that opened doors and rooms most people would never be allowed to enter. None of that had done a single thing in 7 years to quiet the guilt that had been sitting in his chest like a stone. He had fired Ada Parker on a Tuesday in March, 7 years ago. No warning. No real explanation. His mother had mentioned concerns about the household staff during a week when Ethan was buried alive in the biggest acquisition of his career, and he had signed what he believed were routine documents without reading them closely. He had trusted his mother to handle the details. Ada Parker had packed her things that same afternoon and walked out of the Caldwell estate on the north side of Chicago with a box tucked under her arm and her head held perfectly straight. She had not looked back. He had watched her go from the upstairs window because he was too consumed by the merger call on his phone to go down and say anything, and he had told himself he would reach out later and explain, and later had never come. And now it was 7 years later, and he was parked on Carver Street talking himself into getting out of his car. He had thought about Ada Parker more times than he could count over those 7 years. Not in a way that was romantic or complicated. In the simple, direct way that a person thinks about a wrong they did that they have not fixed. It was a kind of thought that arrives in quiet moments, in the space between sleep and waking, in the first minute after a meeting ends and the room goes still. He got out of the car. He walked up the cracked concrete steps of a 3-story building. The buzzer at Unit 2B was slightly loose, rocking in its housing when he pressed it. He pressed it anyway and waited. Footsteps inside. A pause. The particular kind of pause that is a person deciding something. Then the door opened. Ada Parker stood in the doorway in a blue dress, simple and clean, the color of a clear sky after rain. She was 29 now, and she carried herself with a kind of stillness that had not been there 7 years ago. Or maybe it had been there, and he had never paid close enough attention to notice it. It was the stillness of a person who had done hard things and come out steady on the other side. She looked at him the way a person looks at something they have already decided to accept. Not happy, not angry, just present. Ethan opened his mouth to say the words he had practiced for 11 minutes in the car. And something small moved behind Ada's legs. A little girl stepped into the gap between Ada and the doorframe. She was maybe 5 or 6 years old, with dark curly hair pulled into 2 uneven puffs at the top of her head. Her face was round and warm-colored. Her skin a shade between Ada's deep brown and something lighter. She was wearing a yellow shirt with a small bird on the front pocket. She looked like she was in the middle of something important that she had briefly stepped away from. She looked up at the man at the door, and her eyes were blue-gray. Not dark, not hazel. Blue-gray. His blue-gray. Ethan stood completely still. The girl had his nose. Not somewhat like his nose. His nose, exactly, on a 6-year-old face. She had his jaw and his brow and the particular way his eyes sat slightly deep in his face, which he had seen in photographs of his own father as a young man and had never thought much about. She was looking at him with calm, open curiosity. She had not been taught to be afraid of strangers. She was simply looking at him the way she probably looked at everything new, directly and without flinching, deciding what she thought. He had come here to say 2 words. He had practiced them for 11 minutes in the car and for many nights before that. They were completely gone. His eyes filled without warning. He had not seen it coming. There was no gradual build, no moment of deciding. His eyes simply filled and the street behind him went blurry. Ada's hand came down and rested gently on the little girl's shoulder. She did not speak. She did not explain or offer anything. She looked at Ethan with an expression that was not anger, and was not victory, and was not relief. It was something older than all three of those things combined. The expression of a person who has been carrying something for a long time, and is now simply watching what happens when someone else finally sees it. "Ada," Ethan said. His voice did not survive the word. The little girl tilted her head. Her expression shifted from curiosity to something more careful. "Mommy," she said softly, "why is that man crying?" Ethan touched his own face with one hand. He had not realized, until that precise moment, that the tears were already there, already moving. Ada looked at him for a long, steady moment. She looked at his face and at his hand and at the expression on him that was completely outside his control. Then she stepped back from the door. "You had better come in," she said, "before we go any further. If you already have a feeling about what is coming next, and you need to know whether Ethan finds out the full truth, whether Ada will ever trust him again, and what that little girl with the blue-gray eyes is about to say to the man now standing in her living room, do not close this video. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Drop one word in the comments. What do you think Ada told Ethan when he asked about that little girl? Tell us. Then keep reading. You are going to want to be here for all of it. Ada's apartment was small and it was clean, and it was exactly the kind of home that shows you a person has made a full life out of what they have and not spent time apologizing for it. A green couch sat against the far wall with a folded throw blanket across the back. A low bookshelf against the kitchen doorway held picture books stacked sideways, a few paperback novels with bent spines, and a small ceramic pot with a succulent that was doing well. Along the kitchen wall, a long row of children's drawings on printer paper, taped up with the casual permanence of things that matter. The drawings were done in crayon, and all of them were bright and slightly lopsided in the way that 6-year-old art always is, which is to say they were entirely honest. Ethan stood in the middle of it. He had been in rooms that cost more to decorate than this building cost to build. He had stood in offices and conference rooms and hotel lobbies where the design was meant to communicate power and taste and the particular confidence of people who had always had money. None of those rooms had made him feel the way this one did, which was aware of exactly what he had. "Sit down," Ada said, not unkindly. He sat on the green couch. The throw blanket was soft against his arm. The little girl stood near the kitchen entrance with her hands at her sides, watching him with those impossible eyes. There was no shyness in her posture, just attention. "This is Nia," Ada said. Her voice was even. "Nia, this is Mr. Caldwell. He is someone Mommy used to work for a long time ago." Nia looked at him for a moment. Then she said, "Why were you crying?" "I was surprised," Ethan said. "I had not seen your mom in a very long time." Nia appeared to turn this over in her mind. She was the kind of child who actually thinks about what she has been told before deciding what to do with it. After a moment, she seemed to accept it as reasonable, and she turned and walked back down the hallway. The sounds of a private game resumed, a quiet running narration, and the occasional sound effect. Ada went to the kitchen. She came back with 2 glasses of water and set one on the low table in front of Ethan without asking whether he wanted it. She sat in the chair across from the couch. She folded her hands in her lap and waited with the patience of someone who has learned to wait well. "I owe you an apology," Ethan said. "You do," Ada said. "What happened to you was not right. You were good at your work, always. You were reliable, and you were respectful, and you treated everything in that house with care. You deserved better than what I allowed to happen, and I should have asked more questions before I signed anything. I should have made sure I understood what was being done in my name." Ada looked at him without expression. "Are you done?" "No," he said. "I am sorry, Ada. I know that is 7 years late. I know it does not fix anything, but I could not keep not saying it. I needed to say it to your face." Ada was quiet for a moment. Outside the window, a car moved slowly down the street. The afternoon light came through at a low angle, pale and cool, laying itself across the floor in long bars. "How did you find me?" she asked. "I hired someone to find your address about 3 months ago," he said. "I kept finding reasons to put off actually coming. I told myself I would come next week, then next month. Today, I decided I was done waiting." "Why today specifically?" He did not have a clean answer. I woke up this morning and I was just tired of not having done it yet. There is no better time. There is only now. Ada looked at him for a moment. She picked up her water glass and held it. The ice had already mostly melted. From the hallway, Nia's game continued at low volume, her small voice giving instructions to something only she could see. "She is beautiful," Ethan said. It came out before he had thought to keep it in. "She is," Ada said. Simply. A fact she stated without warmth toward him or coldness. Just the plain truth of it. "How old is she?" "She will be 7 in September," Ada said. Ethan counted backward without meaning to. September. Which meant she was born in September of the year that Ada left. And Ada had left in March. Which meant that when Ada walked out of the estate with her box under her arm, she had already been carrying something she did not yet know about. He looked at Ada. Ada looked back at him with that expression that was old and layered. "Ada," he said carefully. "You should drink your water," she said. "It is warm outside." He did not drink the water. He sat forward on the couch. "Ada, is she mine?" Ada held his gaze for a moment. Then from down the hall there were footsteps, and Nia appeared in the living room holding a sheet of paper that she carried directly to Ethan and held out to him with both hands. "This is our house," she said, and pointed to a green boxy shape in the middle of the page. "This is Mommy," a tall brown figure in a purple dress. "This is me," a smaller brown figure beside it. "And this is the empty space." She pointed to a broad open area on the right side of the page, bigger than the house itself. "Mommy says it is okay to have an empty space. She says it means there is room for things." Ethan took the drawing in both hands. His hands were not fully steady. He looked up from the drawing to Ada. Ada looked back at him. She was not going to say it first, but she was not going to deny it either. He could see that clearly. "Ada," he said again. And Ada looked at him with those steady, serious eyes and said 3 words. "I try to tell you." The room went entirely still around those 3 words. Nia had already moved on. She sat down on the floor with a small puzzle from the bookshelf and began pressing pieces together with focused patience. Ethan held the drawing with the empty space on the right and could not find a single thing to say. Not one word. He just sat on the green couch in Ada Parker's living room and held his daughter's drawing and felt the whole shape of 7 years rearrange itself around him. He did not leave right away, and Ada did not ask him to. She went to the kitchen and came back with 2 cups of tea, setting one on the table in front of him without discussion. He accepted it with both hands and said thank you quietly, and they settled into their seats again as if the thing that had just been placed between them needed a moment before anyone moved toward it. Nia worked the puzzle on the floor with steady attention. She would try a piece in one spot, decide it was wrong without forcing it, and try somewhere else. She had the patience of someone who trusts the process. Ada held her teacup and looked at the window. The afternoon light had shifted while they sat. It was a quieter hour now, the kind of light that makes rooms feel private. "I want you to understand something," Ada said, without looking at him. "I am not angry anymore. I decided to let that go a long time ago, because staying angry was going to take up too much room in a life that was already full and needed all the space it had." "You have the right to be angry," Ethan said. "I know I do," she said, "but I chose something else." She looked at Nia on the floor. "I had to. For her. A child knows what her mother carries. Nia was not going to grow up in a house that was full of something bitter. So I let it go. Most days, I am glad I did." Ethan watched Nia press a piece into place with a quiet, satisfied sound. "She is like you," he said. "The patience. The way she keeps going, without forcing anything." "She is like both of us," Ada said simply. "No weight to it. Just the truth of it." He sat with that for a moment. "I need to ask you again," he said. Plainly. "You already know," Ada said. "I need to hear it clearly. From you." Ada looked at him across the small space between the couch and the chair. "Nia is yours, Ethan," she said. "She is your daughter." He put the teacup down on the table carefully because his hands had started doing something that was not quite trembling but was moving in that direction. "I did not know," he said. "I believe you," Ada said. "Now." He looked at her. "What does now mean?" She was quiet for a moment. gathering the words in the careful way she gathered most things. When I first realized I was pregnant, I thought you knew and had decided it was not your problem. The way everything ended. No real reason given, no conversation, just a termination notice and a box. I thought that was your way of closing the door on all of it, including whatever you might have suspected. She paused. I thought the silence was your answer. I did not know you were pregnant, he said. I believe you now, she said again. I'm telling you what I believed then so you understand why I did what I did next, and why I believed what I believed for as long as I did. He nodded. Nia stood up from her puzzle and walked across the room and climbed onto the couch next to Ethan without any announcement. She settled in against the armrest with the comfort of a child who takes up her fair share of space, looked up at him and said, "Your eyes are the same color as mine." "They are," he said. "Mommy says mine are special." "They are." "Are yours special too?" "I think so," he said. His throat had gone tight. Nia considered this with the seriousness it deserved. Then she reached over and patted his hand once, firmly, the way you pat something to confirm it is solid and real and actually there. Then she climbed off the couch and went back to her puzzle. Ada watched her daughter without expression. It was not a cold watching. It was the watching of someone who has looked at this person every day for 6 years and is still not done. "I want to know the full story," Ethan said. "Everything. How it happened, what you went through, how you managed. All of it." Ada looked at him. "That will take more than this afternoon. I have time. I am not going anywhere until I understand it all." Something in Ada's face moved. Not a smile and not exactly relief. Something that sits between the two of those things. The expression of a person who has been holding something too heavy for one person and has finally found someone standing close enough to set part of it down beside. "Come back tomorrow morning," she said. 10 o'clock. "I will tell you everything." He nodded. He stood and picked up his jacket from the couch arm. He looked at Nia, still at her puzzle, pressing pieces together with focused, unhurried patience. He looked at the drawing still in his hand. "Can I keep this?" he asked Nia. Nia looked up. "Yes," she said. "I made it for the empty space anyway." He folded it carefully and put it in his jacket pocket. He walked to the door. Ada held it open. "Ada," he said, standing on the steps. "Thank you for letting me in." "I almost did not," she said honestly. "I know. Nia saw you through the window," Ada said. "Before I opened the door. She said, 'Mommy, that man looks really sad. You should let him in.'" Ada paused. She is almost always right about people. Ethan looked toward the apartment, toward the sound of the puzzle pieces clicking into place. "She gets that from you," he said. Ada looked at him without answering that. She held the door. "I am going to find out what happened," Ethan said. "Whatever got in the way 7 years ago. I am going to find it, and I am going to deal with it. One thing at a time," Ada said. And she closed the door. He stood on the cracked steps in the cool late afternoon, and then walked to his car and sat in it, without starting the engine for a while. He took the drawing out of his pocket and unfolded it. The empty space on the right. The space that meant room. He put it in the glove box so it would not get bent. Then he drove. He came back at 10 o'clock the next morning, exactly as they had agreed. Ada was in a green wrap dress with her natural hair pulled back, a few curls loose at her temples. Nia was next door at Gloria's for the morning, which Ada had arranged so they could talk without stopping every 10 minutes. The apartment without Nia in it was quieter and somehow smaller. The brightness of her was something you noticed when it was absent. Ada made coffee. She set 2 cups on the kitchen table and sat down. Ethan put his phone face down on the table. Ada noticed without commenting on it. "I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after I left your house," Ada said. She held her cup with both hands and kept her eyes on the table. "I sat with it for a few days before I did anything. I was scared. I was staying with my cousin Tamara in Evanston because I could not afford anything on my own yet. She had a pull-out couch in her living room, and she never once made me feel like I was in the way." Ethan did not say anything. He listened. "After a few days, I decided I had to tell you. Not because I wanted anything from you, but because it was the right thing to do. You had a right to know." She paused. "I called the main number at Caldwell Technologies. They connected me to your assistant's voicemail. I left a message. I said I was Ada Parker, a former member of your household staff, and that I needed to speak with you about something personal and urgent. I left my name and Tamara's phone number. I never got that message, Ethan said. I know. I called back twice more over the next 2 weeks. Different people answered each time. Each of them said they had no record of a message from me. One of them told me the assistant had changed and suggested I call the main line again. Ethan pressed his hand flat against the table. Then I wrote a letter, a real one, on paper. I sat at Tamara's kitchen table and I wrote it carefully. I told you what was happening. I told you the timeline. I asked you to contact me. I included Tamara's address and phone number, and I told you the best time to call. She stopped. I sent it to the estate address by registered mail. I kept the tracking receipt. I never received it. I know that now. The tracking showed it was delivered, and then 3 weeks later it arrived back in Tamara's mailbox. Returned to sender. No explanation. No note. Just the envelope with my handwriting on it. Sent back as if it had never reached anyone. Ethan's jaw went tight. I sent one more letter, shorter, a different envelope, so it would not be recognized. Same result. It came back in under 2 weeks. That does not happen on its own, Ethan said. No, Ada said. It does not. You went there? In person. Ada looked at him directly. Once. I was about 4 months along. I took the train to the north side and walked to the estate gate. The guard on duty was someone I did not recognize. He had a list on a clipboard. He ran his finger down it, stopped, and looked up at me, and said I was not permitted on the property. Those exact words. He did not look sorry about it. He was just doing what he had been told. Who told him? He would not say. He was very firm about not saying. Ethan looked at the table. He was working to keep his breathing even. I know what you are about to ask, Ada said. Why not a lawyer? Why not the press? I was thinking it, he admitted. A lawyer costs money I did not have, Ada said. I was 3 months from having a baby, staying on my cousin's pull-out couch, and looking for work every day. There was no money for a lawyer. She set her cup down. And the press. She shook her head. You know how that story would have been written. A billionaire CEO's made claims she is pregnant with his child. I would have been picked apart. My character, my history, my motives. His name would have been a footnote. I had to think about what was actually going to keep me and the baby alive and okay. That was not going to the press. Ethan had nothing to say to that because she was exactly right in every detail. I tried 2 more times after Nia was born, Ada said. I wrote once when she was 6 months old. I thought maybe things had changed, maybe whoever had blocked me was no longer paying attention. That letter also came back. And then when she was almost 2, I found an email address through a trade publication article about Caldwell Technologies. I sent one email. It never bounced, which meant something received it. But I never heard back. Ethan looked up. I never saw an email like that. I believed you when you told me you did not know, Ada said. What I needed to figure out was who did know. And the only person who made sense was your mother. The room was very still. I came to that conclusion on my own, Ada said. I did not want to believe it, because believing it meant the situation was deliberate and not just a failure of communication. A deliberate thing is harder to carry than an accidental one. It was deliberate, Ethan said. I am going to confirm it today, but I already know what I am going to find. Ada nodded. What are you going to do about it? I am going to deal with it, he said. All of it. Every part. Ada looked at him steadily. You have a daughter, she said. She is 6 years old. And she is the best thing in my life, and she already trusts you, which is not a small thing coming from her. Whatever you find out about who got in the way, do not let the anger at that become bigger than she is. She deserves better than to be a side note in someone else's story. She will not be, Ethan said. She is the whole point. Ada looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once, slowly, as if deciding to believe that. At least for now. Go find your answers, she said. Then come back and we will figure out what comes next. He went. Ethan drove back to his hotel in downtown Chicago and did not take off his jacket before he made the first call. James, he said when the line connected. I need everything from 7 years ago. Staff records from the estate. Termination paperwork. any correspondence, internal notes, emails, anything connected to Ada Parker. I need it all, and I need it fast. 2 hours, James said. He did not ask questions. That was why Ethan had kept him for 4 years. The second call was to Leonard Graves, the private investigator Ethan had used twice before for corporate matters. He gave Leonard the shape of what he needed, who at the Caldwell estate had been communicating with a woman named Ada Parker in the months following her termination, and what had been done with those communications. The third call was to his mother. Helen Caldwell answered on the second ring, as she always did, because Helen Caldwell did not let calls go to voicemail from people she knew. It struck him, not for the first time, that this habit was part of how she managed things. She kept a hand on everything. "Ethan, darling," she said. The warmth in her voice was genuine, and that made it harder. "Are you in the city?" "Chicago," he said. "I need to sit down with you. Tomorrow morning." A pause. Half a second too long. "Of course. Come for breakfast. Maria can make those eggs you like." "Just coffee," he said. "I just need to talk." He ended the call and stood at the hotel window. The lake was gray-blue in the distance, flat and still. A freighter was moving along the far horizon, very slowly. He thought about Ada writing a letter at her cousin's kitchen table. He thought about Nia pressing a puzzle piece into place on the floor of the apartment, patient and steady, waiting for the shape that fit. He thought about the drawing in his glove box. James called back in under 2 hours. Ethan read through the file twice. Most of it was what he expected. Standard termination documentation, severance records, formal notice dates. Nothing unusual. But 2 things were not standard. The first, Ada Parker's termination notice, had been authorized by Helen Caldwell's signature, not Ethan's. He had believed, vaguely, during that period, that he had signed a stack of household documents his mother had prepared. He had not read each one carefully. He had been on the phone with lawyers for 16 hours a day and had trusted his mother to manage the estate. He had trusted her completely. The second, a handwritten note from Colin Ashby, the estate manager at the time, now retired, clipped to the back of Ada's file. The note said, per Mrs. Caldwell's instruction, no contact from former staff member A. Parker is to be forwarded to Mr. Caldwell or acknowledged in any form. Ethan read that sentence 3 times. He set his phone on the hotel bed and looked at the ceiling. His mother had fired Ada without telling him the real reason or giving him a choice. His mother had seen to it that Ada's calls were not passed along, that her letters were returned, that her appearance at the gate was turned away. His mother had done all of this during a period when Ethan was too consumed by work to notice, and she had said nothing in 7 years. He thought about what Ada had said at the kitchen table, the way she had described sitting at Tamara's table writing the letter carefully, the registered mail with the tracking receipt she kept, the way she had framed it. A deliberate thing is harder to carry than an accidental one. She had known. She had lived with the knowledge of what was probably true while raising their daughter alone for 6 years, and she had made the choice not to be bitter about it, because their daughter needed room that bitterness would have used up. Ethan got up, put on his jacket, and went downstairs. He ordered dinner in the hotel restaurant. He ate without tasting it. He thought about what he was going to say to his mother tomorrow, and how he was going to say it without raising his voice, because raising his voice was not going to do what needed to be done. He thought about Nia on the floor, pressing puzzle pieces into the right places without forcing any of them. He was going to do this, right? He went to Carver Street before he went to his mother's house. He had stopped at a small toy store on Michigan Avenue early in the morning before the city properly woke up. He stood in the children's section for a while, which he had not done since he was a child himself, and looked at the options with a slightly lost feeling of someone operating outside their usual territory. Eventually he chose a tin case of 60 colored pencils arranged by shade, a drawing pad with thick cream-colored pages that would not bleed through, and a hardcover book about birds with photographs on every other page. He had picked up the bird book because of Nia's drawing in his glove box, the bird with the long wings that went very far and always found its way back. Gloria Bennett was in the hallway when he arrived, coming out of her apartment with a bag of recycling. She was a round, warm woman in a yellow cardigan and dark trousers, and she looked him over with a completely frank assessment of someone who has already made their judgment and is simply checking whether the evidence in front of them confirms it. "You are the CEO," she said. "I am," Ethan said. She looked at the bag in his hand. "Nia is inside with Ada. Go on in." She knocked twice on Ada's door in the rhythm of someone who has done it 1,000 times and pushed it open from the outside. Nia was at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal and a library book. She looked up when Ethan came through the door, and her face opened into a wide, uncomplicated smile. No wariness, no calculation. Just a child who had expected someone nice and found him. "You came back," she said. "I said I would." "Lots of people say they will," she said, with the easy matter-of-fact delivery of someone who has been paying attention to the world for 6 years and drawn some conclusions. "And then they find something else to do." "I did not find anything else to do," Ethan said. "Good," she said. He set the bag on the table in front of her and looked at Ada, who was by the counter. Ada nodded once. He sat down. Nia looked at the bag. Then she looked at him. "Is that for me?" "If it is okay with your mom." Nia looked at Ada. Ada nodded again. Nia turned back to the bag and opened it with the deliberate, careful hands of someone who does not want to rush any part of an experience that might be good. She lifted out the tin of colored pencils first and held it up toward the kitchen window, where the light was coming in cool and pale. She opened the tin and looked at the pencils arranged by shade, all of them sharp and new. She pressed the tin closed and set it carefully to the right. She pulled out the drawing pad and opened it to the first page. She pressed her palm flat against the surface, the way you press your palm against something when you want to know what it actually is. The paper was thick and smooth and did not bend under her hand. She picked up the bird book and read the title out loud, sounding each word as if she was tasting it. She opened it and looked at the first photograph. Then she looked up at Ethan. "Thank you, Ethan," she said. "Not Mr. Caldwell. Ethan." She had decided. "You are welcome," he said. Ada set a cup of coffee in front of him and sat down at the corner of the table. She watched Nia the way she always watched her, with the complete attention of someone who still, after 6 years, finds this person endlessly interesting. Nia opened the pencil tin and without hesitation selected a bright red pencil. She opened the drawing pad to the first page. She began to draw. Ethan watched her. "What are you drawing?" he asked. "A bird," she said. She did not look up. Her hand moved across the page with confidence. "What kind of bird?" "The kind that goes very far." She added a line. "Mommy says some birds fly, so far they forget where they started, but they always find their way back." She pressed the red pencil a little harder. "I think that is the best kind." Ethan did not look at Ada. He kept his eyes on the drawing. After a few minutes, Nia set down the red pencil and selected a blue one. She worked on the wings. Then a green one for something he could not yet identify at the edge of the page. She was completely absorbed. The bowl of cereal sat forgotten. "Ethan," she said, without looking up. "Yes." "Do you have kids?" The question sat down in the room, quietly. "No," Ethan said. Nia nodded. She added more blue to the wings. "Do you want some?" "Nia," Ada said gently. "I am just asking," Nia said. "Gloria says it is perfectly fine to ask things if you are genuinely curious about them, and you use a polite voice." "It is all right," Ethan said. He looked at the little girl, at her focused hands, at the drawing taking shape under her pencil. "Yes," he said. "I think I would like that very much. A family." Nia considered this with full seriousness. She looked up at him. "We are a family," she said. "Me and Mommy. And Gloria is family too, a little bit. She says she is our chosen family, which he says is just as real as the other kind." "That sounds right to me," Ethan said. "Okay," Nia said. She went back to the drawing. They sat quietly for a while. The kitchen was still. The cool morning light moved very slowly across the table as the sun shifted. Then Nia put down her pencil and looked at him with the direct attention she had been giving him since the first moment at the door. "Ethan," she said. "Yes." "Are you going to be my daddy?" The room stopped. Ada looked at her hands on the table. Ethan looked at Nia's face. at the open, earnest question sitting on it like something she had been holding for a while and had finally decided to say out loud. She was not trying to manipulate him. She was not performing anything. She simply needed to know. Children ask the questions that adults spend years finding ways not to ask. "I hope so," Ethan said. His voice was steady, but it took effort. "If your mom says it is okay, and if that is something you would want." Nia looked at him for a long moment with her blue-gray eyes. Then she smiled, small and decided, the kind of smile that has already made up its mind. "Okay," she said. "I am going to put you in the picture." She picked up a pink pencil and drew a new figure on the right side of the page. Tall and a little uneven, the way all 6-year-old people drawings are. Standing next to the brown figure that was Ada and the smaller brown figure that was Nia. She drew the figure carefully, and then she looked at it and seemed satisfied. The empty space was gone. Before Ethan left, he offered Ada 2 things. He would cover her rent for the next 3 months, so she had room to breathe while they sorted out what came next. And he had noticed her phone, which had a crack across the upper right corner of the screen. He wanted to replace it. Ada accepted both with the directness she gave everything. She looked him in the eye and said, "Thank you. I appreciate that." She did not deflect, and she did not make it smaller than it was. She received it as it was given. "I need to go take care of something," he said at the door. "I will be back in a few days." Ada walked him out. On the steps, he paused and looked back at the apartment. "Where does she get it?" he asked quietly. "That ease she has with people. That openness." "I do not entirely know," Ada said. "She has always been that way. Easy in herself." Ethan looked at Ada. "I think I have an idea," he said. Ada met his gaze for a moment. Then she held the door. "Go," she said. "Take care of what you need to take care of." He went. Ethan drove 40 minutes north to Lake Forest with the windows partway down. The Caldwell house sat at the end of a long private drive behind a wall of well-maintained trees. Wide stone steps. White columns that had never seemed friendly, just impressive. Landscaped hedges cut to shapes that had not changed since Ethan was 12 years old. He had grown up in this house, and it had always been more beautiful than it was warm. Helen Caldwell was in the front sitting room when he arrived. She was in a cream blouse and dark trousers, her silver hair set with the precision she had maintained for decades. A pot of coffee was already on the low table. She poured him a cup before he sat down, the way she had done since he was old enough for coffee, which she had given him at 14 and called a continental habit. He took the cup. He set a folder on the table between them. "Ada Parker's termination file," he said, "with your signature on it. Not mine." Helen looked at the folder. She did not reach for it. "And this." He placed a separate sheet beside it. A note from Colin Ashby, written on a state letterhead. It says, "No contact from former staff member Parker is to be forwarded or acknowledged." It says this was your instruction. Helen was very still. "I also know," Ethan said, keeping his voice flat and deliberate, "that Ada Parker came to the estate gate in person, 4 months pregnant, and she was turned away by a guard who had been told to do so." Helen closed her eyes. "Mom." The word came out even. He had prepared for this. She opened her eyes. "There is a 6-year-old girl," he said, "in an apartment in Southside Chicago. She has never had a father. She draws pictures with an empty space in them because her mother told her an empty space means there is room for something. She asked me yesterday if I was going to be her daddy." He stopped. He let that settle. "I need you to tell me everything. All of it. Every part." Helen pressed both hands around the coffee cup. She looked at the table. She looked at the file folder. She looked at the window. "You were in the middle of the Hartwell acquisition," she said. Her voice was smaller than he had ever heard it. "You were 26. You had been working 18-hour days for 3 months. A relationship with a member of the household staff was the kind of thing that gets in front of a board, Ethan. It gets in front of journalists. It was going to create a story that would follow you for years." "You fired her without telling me why," Ethan said. "You signed the documents that week. You signed a large stack of things without reading each one. I had Patrick prepare the paperwork, and I authorized it under the household accounts. And when she wrote to me..." Helen was quiet. "When she came to the gate," he said. Helen's hands tightened around the cup. Patrick told me she had been to the gate. He told me about the letters. I instructed him to ensure none of it came through to you. She was pregnant, Ethan said. I knew, Helen said. Patrick confirmed it from what she had written. The words sat there between them like something heavy dropped on the table. You knew, Ethan said. And you chose not to tell me. I made a decision, Helen said. Her voice was thinning further as she spoke. I believed I was making the right decision for your future, for the company, for everything we had built. You believed that a grandchild of yours growing up without a father in a single-parent apartment without resources, while you sat 40 minutes away in this house, was the right decision. Helen's face broke. It happened slowly, the way something breaks that has been under pressure for a long time. I told myself it would settle, she said, that she would go on with her life, that you would build the future I always wanted for you, and this would simply fade. It did not fade, Ethan said. It is on Carver Street. It is 6 years old, and it has my eyes, and it has been wondering its whole life why one part of the picture was empty. Helen put both hands over her face. She sat there with her hands covering her face, and the sound she made was not crying exactly, but it was close to it, and it had been a long time building. Ethan waited. Then he said, "You are going to call Patrick Holt today. Today, not tomorrow. You are going to inform him that his involvement in this is being formally documented. He is to be removed from your legal team immediately." Helen nodded behind her hands. "And you're going to find a way to make this right," he said. "Not just with me, with Ada. I am not going to tell you what that looks like or when it happens. But you are going to be prepared to do it, because if you are not, you will have no part in what comes next. In Nia's life. In mine." Helen lowered her hands. Her eyes were wet, and her composure was largely gone, and she looked older than he had seen her look. "Is she well?" she asked very quietly. "Nia, is she healthy? Is she happy?" Ethan looked at his mother for a long moment. "She is extraordinary," he said. "She is kind and patient, and she trusts people before they have given her reason to, which I think she learned from her mother. She showed me her drawings this morning. She put me in one of them. She said the empty space was gone." Helen closed her eyes again. Ethan stood. He picked up the file. "Make the call to Patrick today," he said. "And think carefully about what comes next, because when Ada decides she is ready to allow you to meet Nia, you are going to have earned it." He walked to the door. "Ethan," Helen said. He stopped. "I am sorry," she said. "I know that is not enough." "No," he said. "It is not. But it is where you have to start." He left. Ethan came back to Carver Street 3 days after the confrontation. After that, he came back every 2 or 3 days, and the visits settled into a rhythm that felt, over time, less like an arrangement and more like a pattern that had always been going to exist. He always came at a time Ada had agreed to. He always brought something practical and never anything showy. He was not trying to demonstrate his money. He was trying to demonstrate that he paid attention. He brought groceries once, the specific items Ada had mentioned needing when she was on the phone with the building office, and thought he was not listening. He brought Nia new school shoes because Ada had said in passing, while Nia was in the other room, that she had outgrown her last pair and Ada was waiting for her next pay period. He paid off the outstanding rent through the building management and set up a credit so Ada would not be behind again. Ada received each thing the same way. She looked at him directly. She said thank you, and she meant it. She did not make it smaller than it was by saying it was too much. She did not make herself smaller by refusing it or deflecting. She simply received it with the kind of gratitude that comes from someone who knows the difference between charity and care. One evening, he brought takeout from a Thai restaurant on the north side that Nia had mentioned wanting to try. She had seen a commercial apparently, and had told Ada that the noodles in the commercial looked very serious, which was Nia's way of saying she was genuinely interested. They ate at the kitchen table, the 3 of them and Gloria, who had arrived 11 minutes before the food with a fruit salad in a ceramic bowl and the expression of someone who had decided to supervise. Nia tried each dish and delivered a careful verdict on each one. "The noodles are very good," she said. "The rice is okay." She sampled the soup. "I'm not sure about this one yet. I will try it again at the end." Ada laughed. A real one, quiet and coming up from somewhere genuine. And Ethan looked at her across the takeout containers and felt something in his chest move. Gloria had been watching him all evening with the steady appraisal of a person who takes their time making decisions, but sticks to them once made. When Ada introduced them properly, Gloria shook his hand and held it for a beat longer than normal. "I know who you are," she said. "I have known who you are for about 6 years. I am the one who held that baby the first night because Ada had been in labor for 14 hours, and she was asleep the moment they let her, and someone needed to hold Nia so she would not cry alone. She held his hand through all of this. So you understand why I am looking at you the way I am." "I do," Ethan said. "Good." Gloria released his hand. "You seem like a man who is trying. I respect that. Do not stop." She took her fruit salad bowl to the table and sat in the best chair. Ada covered her face for a moment. "Gloria," she said quietly. "I said what needed saying," Gloria replied. Ethan looked at the table. He was working very hard not to smile. Later, after Nia was in bed and the containers were cleared and Gloria had gone back next door with her bowl, Ada and Ethan sat in the living room with tea. The apartment was quiet and the street light outside put pale, steady light through the window. "I confronted my mother," Ethan said. Ada set her cup down and looked at him. She admitted all of it. The termination paperwork. She had Patrick Holt block your calls and return your letters. She knew you were pregnant. She knew, and she made the choice to keep it from me. He paused. She told me she believed she was protecting my business and my reputation. Ada was quiet for a long time. She looked at her hands in her lap. She looked like someone hearing a thing confirmed that they already knew, which was exactly what she was. "Patrick Holt has been removed from her legal team," Ethan said. "His involvement is formally documented. That is done." Ada nodded once. "I told her she would need to make this right. With you. That I would not set a timeline for it, but that she needed to be prepared." "How did she take that?" Ada asked. "She took it like someone who knows they deserve what they are hearing," Ethan said. "Which is the only honest way to take it." Ada looked at him. "Thank you for doing that," she said. "I know it was not easy." "It was not," he said. "But it needed to be done." She was quiet. She picked up her tea and held it. Outside, someone walked past on the sidewalk, footsteps, and then quiet. "I want to arrange a DNA test," Ethan said, "through Dr. Renee Foster at Northwestern. I have already contacted her office. Not because I doubt what you have told me. I believe you completely. But Nia deserves everything on the official record. For her future. For her rights. For everything she is entitled to." Ada nodded slowly. Whenever you are ready. Dr. Foster says it is a very simple process for children. A cheek swab. It takes a few minutes and does not hurt. "I will call her next week," Ada said. "I will cover everything. The appointment, the testing, any follow-up." "I know you will," Ada said. Not coolly. Just factually. She looked at him across the quiet room. "You are showing up," she said. "I want you to know I see that." "I plan to keep doing it," he said. "I know that too," she said. "I am beginning to." And that, from Ada Parker, was a significant thing. Dr. Renee Foster had a calm and careful manner that Ethan recognized as the professional version of what Ada did naturally. She explained everything before she did it. She used language a 6-year-old could follow, and she never reached for anything without first telling Nia exactly what it was. "We are going to use a very small brush," Dr. Foster told Nia. "It is softer than a toothbrush and much smaller. We rub it gently on the inside of your cheek. It feels a little bit like someone rubbing the inside of your cheek with a fingertip. It does not hurt at all." "Okay," Nia said. She was sitting on the examination table in a bright yellow dress, legs swinging. She was entirely unbothered. "Can I see the brush first?" Dr. Foster showed her the swab. Nia examined it. "That is very small," she agreed. "Okay, go ahead." The test took 4 minutes, including Nia's inspection time. When it was done, Dr. Foster confirmed she could have 3 stickers. Nia selected each one with the kind of focus she gave important decisions and pressed them carefully onto the front of her yellow dress. On the way back to Carver Street, Nia ate a granola bar and asked Ethan if the Bird book had a second volume. He said he would find out. She said she hoped so because she had questions about one of the birds in the back section that the book did not fully answer. The results came back 10 days later. Ethan opened the envelope in his hotel room at 7 in the morning, standing at the window with the lake stretched out below and the city still quiet. He read the result once. He read it again. The probability figure sat on the page in plain text. Probability of paternity, 99.98%. He stood at the window for a long time. He thought about what he knew now that he had not known 12 days ago. He thought about Ada at 22, alone at a kitchen table, writing a letter with a tracking receipt that would eventually come back with the envelope unopened. He thought about the gate guard with his clipboard and his list. He thought about 6 years of dinner tables and school mornings and sick days and bedtimes, all of it carried by one person because someone in a Lake Forest house had decided that was acceptable. He picked up his phone. "Can I come over now?" he said when Ada answered. "Nia is at school," she said. "I am home. I will be there in 30 minutes. He drove to Carver Street. Ada was in a maroon blouse and dark jeans when she opened the door. She looked at his face before he said a word and seemed to understand. "Come in," she said. He sat at the kitchen table. She sat across from him. He slid the envelope across to her. She opened it. She read it. She set it flat on the table and looked at the table for a moment without speaking. "Ada," he said. "I know," she said. "I have always known." "I want to be on her birth certificate," he said. "Officially and legally. I want her father's name in every document that matters. I want her to have my name if she ever wants it, or yours, or both, or neither. That is her choice to make when she is old enough. But I want to be there for all of it, for the school plays, and the bad days, and the ordinary days, and everything in between." Ada looked at him. "You understand what that means?" "Yes. It means consistency. Showing up when it is inconvenient. When your schedule is full, and she has a fever, or she had a hard day at school, and she needs someone. You cannot decide later that it was more than you wanted." "Ada." He held her gaze. "She patted my hand on your couch the day I arrived to confirm I was real. She put me in her drawing and said the empty space was gone. She has already decided. I am not going to let her down." Ada was quiet for a moment. She looked at the result on the table between them. Then she said, "Okay, we will go to my lawyer, together." "Good," he said. She refilled her coffee cup and held the pot up. He held out his cup. She poured and set it down and sat back in her chair. "Ethan," she said. "Yes. Thank you for being honest about all of it. Your mother, the letters, the test. You could have come in here and made this just about money and legal arrangements and kept everything else at a distance." "That is not what this is," he said. "I know," she said. "That is why I am saying thank you." The morning light came through the kitchen window and lay across the table between them, pale and steady. 3 days later, James called. "There is a piece going up in a tabloid," James said. His voice was careful and measured in the way it got when he was about to say something Ethan was not going to like. "Someone tipped them off about the paternity situation. We have seen the preview. The headline is manageable. But there is a second source talking to the reporter who is pushing a more damaging angle." Ethan set down the coffee he was holding. "Who is the source?" A pause. "Her name is Caroline Marsh." The name landed like a stone. Caroline Marsh. He had dated her briefly 2 years ago, after a charity event where they had been seated near each other. The relationship had lasted 4 months, and she had made clear, in its final weeks, that she believed it was leading somewhere permanent. He had made equally clear that it was not. She had not received that news well. He had not heard from her directly since, but he had become aware that she remained in the same social circles, and that she watched his news with attention. "What angle is she pushing?" Ethan asked. "She is framing the mother as someone who engineered a situation," James said. "A former employee leveraging a past connection. She has given the reporter enough to make it sound plausible." "How long do we have before it goes up?" "They are planning to publish tomorrow morning," James said. "Then we have tonight," Ethan said. He was already reaching for his jacket. "This is the moment everything you have been waiting for changes. You have been with Ada and Nia and Ethan through all of it. You watched her write those letters. You watched her hold that baby alone. You watched Ethan show up on those steps with tears on his face. And now, just when it is all coming together, someone is trying to burn it down. If you want to know whether Ada holds firm, whether Ethan stands up, and how this family gets through what is coming, you need to subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Drop your prediction in the comments. Does Ada walk away when she sees that headline, or does she hold on? Comment holds on or walks away. We want to know what you think. Keep reading. The article appeared online at 6 in the morning. Ada found it at 7. Gloria knocked on her door while it was still early, holding her phone with a particular expression on her face. Ada knew that expression. It was the one Gloria reserved for things that required a conversation. The headline read, "Billionaire Caldwell's Secret Child. Former Maid's Long Con or Lonely Truth." Ada read the first paragraph. She read the second. She set the phone face down on the kitchen counter. She stood at the window for a while. The street outside was pale and quiet in the morning light. A few people walked past on their way to somewhere. An ordinary Thursday morning. Gloria sat at the kitchen table without being asked. She folded her hands on the tabletop and waited. "You do not have to read the rest of it," Gloria said after a moment. "I know," Ada said. "It is not true what it says in that first part." "I know that too." "Then why do you look like that?" Ada turned from the window. "Because being lied about is tiring," she said. "Even when you know the truth. Even when you know the people who matter know the truth. It is still tiring." "Yes," Gloria said. "It is." Nia was still asleep. Ada had perhaps 30 minutes before she needed to get her up for school. She went to her bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed and thought about everything. The whole sequence of it. The knock on the door, Ethan's face, the drawing with the empty space, the confrontation with his mother, the DNA results on the table, the lawyer's appointment she had already made. She thought about how carefully she had held all of it and how she had believed, just in the past few days, that it was going to be all right. She thought about Nia asking Ethan if he was going to be her daddy, about the pink figure on the right side of the drawing. Her phone rang. "Ethan." She answered without saying anything. "I saw it," she said. "Ada," he said, "I need you to hear me clearly. Caroline Marsh is someone I was briefly involved with 2 years ago. That relationship ended because I ended it, and she did not accept that well. She has nothing to do with you. She does not know you. You are not the target of this. She is angry at me, and she chose you as the way to reach me." Ada said nothing. She was listening. "I have already written a statement," he said. "I want to read it to you before it goes out. Nothing goes out without you hearing it first." "Come over," she said, "after I take Nia to school." She took Nia to school. Nia had noticed at breakfast that Ada was quieter than usual and had asked if she was okay. Ada told her she was fine, just thinking. Nia had given her the particular look she gave when she suspected an adult was not telling the full truth, but was deciding to accept the answer anyway. Ethan was waiting outside the building when Ada came back from the school drop-off. He was standing on the steps with 2 coffees from the corner place, not sitting, just standing like someone who had decided to wait on his feet. He held one out when she reached the steps. She took it. They went upstairs. He read her the statement at the kitchen table before he sent it. It was 6 sentences. It said Nia Parker was his daughter, and he was honored to be her father. It said Ada Parker was a woman of outstanding character who had raised their daughter alone under circumstances that were the direct result of interference within his own family. It said the framing of her story in the article that morning was false. It said any publication choosing to characterize Ada Parker as anything other than what she plainly was would be corrected publicly, immediately, and in full. He looked at her when he was done reading. "Is there anything you want changed?" Ada read it back in her head. "No," she said. "Send it." He sent it. It moved through social media quickly. By noon it had been shared thousands of times. People who had read the tabloid article read the statement and shared it. People who had not read the article shared the statement anyway because of what it said. At 12:15, a second statement appeared online. It came from Helen Caldwell. It was longer than Ethan's. It said that 7 years ago she had made a grave error in judgment, that she had interfered in a matter that was entirely outside her right to control, that she had taken deliberate steps to ensure that Ada Parker could not reach her son, and that she had done this knowing Ada was carrying Ethan's child. It said Ada Parker had done nothing wrong at any point. It said Helen Caldwell took full and sole responsibility for the separation that had occurred, and for the years that had been lost. It said she hoped in time to have the opportunity to prove she understood the weight of what she had done. Ethan slid his phone across the table so Ada could read it. Ada read it twice. When she looked up, her eyes were bright. Not wet, just bright. "Your mother wrote that," she said. "She called me this morning before I came here," he said. "She said she was going to do it. I did not ask her to. She made that decision on her own." Ada looked at the statement again. She pressed her lips together for a moment. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked. "I am angry," she said. "I am still angry at everything that was done. 7 years is 7 years, and a statement does not give those back." She paused. "But I am also something else. Something I do not have the right word for yet." "You do not need the word right now," he said. "No," she agreed. "Not right now." The tabloid took the article down at 3 that afternoon. The editor cited a need to review sourcing. Caroline Marsh did not comment publicly. She did not need to. The two statements had already made everything clear to anyone reading. Gloria came by that evening with a pot of chicken soup and sat down at the table with the satisfaction of someone whose judgment has been completely confirmed. "I told you," she said to Ada. "You told me he seemed like a man who was trying," Ada said. "That was what you said." "That was all I needed to say," Gloria replied. "And I was right." Ethan was at the table when she said this. He looked at his soup bowl and said nothing. Ada saw, from across the table, the careful effort he was making not to smile. They ate soup. Nia, who had come home from school to find Ethan there, and had simply accepted this as the current state of things, reported on her day. Her friend B had gotten a new lunchbox with a dragon on it, which Nia considered very appropriate given the library book. Their teacher had taught them how to tell time to the quarter hour, which Nia said was more complicated than it needed to be. "Time usually is," Ethan said. Nia considered this. "True," she said. She ate more soup. 2 weeks after the storm had passed, on a Friday evening in October, when the air outside had gone cool and clear, Ethan arrived at Carver Street at 6 o'clock with takeout from the Thai restaurant and a small white envelope in his jacket pocket. Nia met him at the door in a red dress with white buttons down the front, her dark curly hair in 2 braids. She took the bags from him with both hands and carried them to the kitchen with the careful ceremony she gave things that mattered. Gloria was already in the kitchen, having let herself in with the key Ada had given her years ago. She had brought a fruit salad in her ceramic bowl and taken the best chair, as she always did, without commentary. They ate together. The table was a little crowded for 4 people, but it always managed. Nia carried the conversation with full energy, reporting on the week with the thoroughness of someone who believes everything deserves its fair share of attention. Her friend BEA's hiccup laugh. The Dragon book's ending, which she found satisfying but wanted to discuss. The spelling rule for the word receive, which she thought was arbitrary and unfair. "The rule is I before E except after C," she told Ethan. "I know that rule," he said. "Do you think it is fair?" He thought about it seriously. "No," he said. "There are too many exceptions." "Thank you," Nia said. "I have been saying that." Ada watched her daughter with the quiet pleasure of someone who has been given, every day, something she did not expect to have this much of. After dinner, Nia helped clear the table, carrying one item at a time with enormous care. Gloria watched this and said, "Surgeon, I am telling you. She will be whatever she decides to be," Ada said. "Obviously," Gloria said. "I am just identifying natural aptitude." When Nia was settled on the couch with her current library book, and Gloria had opened her phone and was performing concentration with the focused dedication of someone whose actual attention was on the room, Ethan looked at Ada quietly and said, "Can we step outside for a few minutes?" Ada got her green cardigan from the hook and followed him out to the landing. The hallway was lit overhead with a clean, steady white light. It smelled like the building always did, old wood and something faintly like lavender from the woman in 2A who cooked with it. Ethan stood in front of her. I have a few things to tell you, he said. And then I need to ask you something. All right, Ada said. Patrick Holt's involvement in what happened has been formally documented and filed with my legal office. He has no further connection to my mother's affairs or mine. That is permanent. Ada nodded. My legal team filed the amended birth certificate paperwork 3 days ago. Nia will be listed with both our names. It should be fully processed within the next month. Ada nodded again. I have set up an education fund in Nia's name, he said. College, graduate school, any training or certification she wants to pursue. It is funded, it is in her name, and it is entirely unconditional. It does not depend on anything between you and me. Ada looked at him for a moment. Ethan, she said. She is my daughter, he said. She is going to have everything she needs. That is not open for discussion. Thank you, Ada said. And she let the words carry their full weight. He was quiet for a moment. He looked at her in the hallway, in the clean white light, her cardigan around her shoulders, her eyes direct and clear. He thought about 11 minutes in a parked car on Carver Street, working up the nerve to press a loose buzzer. He thought about a drawing in his glove box. My mother wants to meet Nia, he said. When you decide you are willing to allow it, you set every condition. You set the timeline. There is no pressure. I will think about it, Ada said. I am not there yet, but I will think about it. That is all I am asking. He reached into his jacket pocket and took out the small white envelope. This is the last thing, he said. He held it toward her. Ada took it. She turned it over. It had her name on the front in Ethan's handwriting, which she had seen enough of in the past few weeks to recognize. She opened it and took out the card inside. He had written it by hand, on heavy white cardstock, in his cramped and slightly uneven script. She read it slowly, the way she read things that mattered. It said, I know this is not the right setting or the right speech, but I have learned from you that waiting for the right setting is how I already missed 7 years, and I do not want to miss another minute. So I am asking you here, in this hallway, under this light, as plainly and as honestly as I know how. Ada Parker, I would like to spend the rest of my life making sure you and Nia never have to face anything hard alone again. I would like to do that as your husband, if you will have me. There is a ring, but I did not presume to choose it without you. We will choose it together, if your answer is yes. Ada read it once. She read it again. She looked at the card for a moment longer. Your handwriting is really terrible, she said. I know, he said. You wrote the whole thing out by hand anyway. Yes. She looked up at him. Yes, she said. My answer is yes. He breathed out. It was not dramatic. It was just the particular breath of someone who has been holding something and has finally been told it is all right to set it down. Okay, he said. Good. Ada covered her mouth for just a moment with one hand. Then she lowered her hand and stood straight. We should go back in, she said. Nia is going to start reading aloud to herself in about 3 minutes, and Gloria is going to pretend she is not completely enchanted by every word of it. Ethan laughed. A real one, quiet and full. Let's go in, he said. They went back inside. Nia was already reading aloud, the library book held up close to her face. Gloria was performing phone scrolling with the dedication of someone who has chosen their role and is committed to it. Ada and Ethan sat back down at the table. Nia lowered the book and looked at them both. She read faces the way she read words, carefully and with her full attention. Did something happen? She asked. Yes, Ada said. Good something or bad something? Good, Ada said. Nia thought about this. Her eyes moved to Ethan, then back to Ada. Then she nodded once, apparently satisfied. Okay, she said. Do you want to hear about the dragon? He found his whole family at the end. It is very good. Yes, Ethan said. Tell us about the dragon. Nia began to read. Gloria looked at Ada over the top of her phone. Ada looked at Gloria. Gloria's face said everything that needed to be said, and said it warmly and without a single word. 3 weeks later, on a Saturday in November, when the trees along the drive to Helen's house had gone gold and were beginning to let go, Ethan drove Ada and Nia north to Lake Forest. Nia sat in the back seat with her bird book and asked questions about the suburbs that Ethan answered as accurately as he could. What is that big building? Why do the houses have so much grass? Is that a park or someone's yard? How do people mow that much grass? When they pulled up to the Caldwell house, Nia pressed her face to the car window. This is very big, she said. It is, Ada agreed. Do people live here, or is it a museum? People live here, Ethan said. Nia considered this. She said. Helen was standing at the top of the wide stone steps when they got out of the car. She was in a pale blue jacket, her silver hair neat, her hands folded in front of her. She looked, Ethan thought, like someone who had been standing there for a while and had been using the time to prepare. Nia got out of the car and stood on the drive and looked up at the house and then at the woman on the steps. Hello, Nia said. Helen looked at the child. Her face moved through several things at once. Hello, Nia, she said. Her voice was careful and soft. Are you Ethan's mom? Nia asked. I am, Helen said. Nia looked at her for a long moment with those blue-gray eyes. Then you are my grandma, she said. She said it the way she said most things, as a simple fact that had just been established. Helen's hand came up to her chest. Her eyes filled. Yes, she said. I am. Okay, Nia said. She walked up the steps, past Helen, and through the open front door. A moment later her voice came back from inside the house. It smells like cookies in here. Helen looked at Ada. Ada stood on the drive below and looked at Helen above her on the steps. There was a long moment between them, long enough to hold 7 years of things that could not be undone, a woman at a gate being turned away, letters coming back unopened. 6 years of Saturday mornings and sick nights and school days that a grandfather's child had lived without a father. I know an apology is not enough, Helen said. Her voice was lower than usual. No, Ada said. It is not. I know that, Helen said. I am prepared to spend as long as it takes proving that I understand that fully. Ada looked at her. She looked at this woman who had made a decision 7 years ago from behind the walls of a beautiful house that had too much space in it, and who was now standing at the top of her own steps looking like someone who had finally understood the cost of what she chose. Okay, Ada said. Not warmly, not coldly, fairly. With the same directness, she had given everything since the moment she opened her door to a man who had been sitting in his car for 11 minutes. Helen nodded. Ada walked up the steps and through the door into the house that smelled like cookies, where her daughter was already somewhere inside asking Ethan where the kitchen was, because the kitchen was where the cookies were and Nia had priorities. Ada did not look back. She did not need to. The empty space was gone.